any question, you may interrupt me during presentation, and there will be, of course, question and answer session at the end. So my name is Chingiz. For 15 years, I was head of environmental portfolio of UNDP, United Nations Development Program in Azerbaijan. Now I am retired. I am advising two private oil companies, Balakhani Oil and Surakhani Oil, in their preparation to COP29. And we have many projects, and you will see them at the end of presentation. So now let me start. Presentation is called Climate Change and COP29, Secrets and Opportunities. As you may see, I put secrets in brackets. So why? Because these are not real secrets. Specialists know about them, but general public, throughout my presentation, we found out that general public is not very much aware about those secrets, and that's why I called presentation this one. So let's start. Do you know this man? Seems to be familiar to you or not?
No, we don't.
No? You know. So, and this lady, if you look carefully, you may reveal that these are Neanderthal people, male and female, Neanderthal. So Neanderthals lived approximately from 100,000 years ago, approximately to 40,000 years ago. And the distinctive feature was that they were very strong, physically strong. We are today not as strong as they were. And then some magical happened, some magic happened. And you will see, and we will see together, how this magic happened and why this magic happened. And each time when you see the magic, we have to try to understand what's behind this magic, what the reasons for that magic. And the really magic. How many magics you know? First magic, creation of universe, right?
Yeah.
Nobody can say what's the reason, how it happened. Believers, in God, they say that God created this, but then atheists ask believers, but who created God? So, and vice versa, there is no real explanation. You have to either believe in God or in nature. And depending on that, people are divided into atheists and theists. Those that believe in God and those that deny the existence of God. Then another magic. Another magic is this, all complex of, stars, planets emerging. Then one star, sun, located on certain distance from Earth. Because if sun would be too close to Earth, it can burn the Earth, because temperature is very high. If too far, it would be very cold and not possible for life. Then creation of life. This is a miracle. For the last 200 years, scientists are trying, and actually even before, they are trying to create life. They mix different, substances, then boil, then, do certain things, and they hope that they will create life. Not able to create life. Then life divided into two parts, plants and animals. And they differ how they produce energy and how they use energy. Then, at least, animal part divided and plants as well into two parts, males and females. And then one of final magics, human beings with conscious appeared. And people are that part of creation that tries to understand all what's happening in the universe. They are trying to discover nature, to discover space, to go deep into oceans, high into mountains, and understand what's happening within our body, including what's happening within our mind. And we're developing. For example, if in the beginning of the 19th century, someone would tell that soon electricity would be discovered and will change our life dramatically. Our life, due to discovery of electricity, changed dramatically. When today we say that we will not be able to go to other stars because they are too far from us, who knows? If someone at the end of 18th century would say that electricity would be discovered, people wouldn't believe that person. So today we don't know what we will discover tomorrow. Maybe we'll discover something which will allow us to travel through universe with very high speed. We don't know. So the same happens with these people. These people, Neanderthal people, lived approximately, as I've said, 100,000 years ago and up to 40,000 years ago. But how long is the life of humanity? We people as human beings, when we disappeared? Approximately. Approximately. 1 million years ago. So it's counted that not, of course, colored people, but some animals, I don't know how to call this, but some living creatures which were able to analyze the life. So they appeared approximately 1 million years ago. And they evolved through evolutionary process, and today we are as we are today. And you know, this is diagram showing change of temperature on Earth during last 150,000 years. And it shows how dramatically temperature changed. Look, you know, this is 0 line, and you see, this is average yearly temperature. Temperature changed so fast that people were not able to engage in economic activities. They were mainly hunting and gathering. Yeah. Hunting and gathering. And they lived through this way almost 1 million years. 1 million years. Then something happened during last 10 to 12,000 years. This is 50,000, and this is approximately 10 to 12,000 years. Temperature on Earth stabilized. There are no dramatic changes as previously. So average temperature on Earth today, yearly temperature, is around 15 degrees. The lowest temperature is minus 60. Sometimes it goes below, but very rarely, very seldom. And usually temperature doesn't go above plus 50. And only one creatures on Earth which are used to live in this diapason. These are we, human beings. Nobody else. Nobody else. So human beings adjusted to live in temperature. You know, in Yakutia, in Siberia, people live in temperature around minus 60, and they're able to hunt, you know, to build houses from ice. From ice, you know, they're building houses, so-called igloo. And in deserts, temperature is around plus 50. Other creatures that cannot live under such temperatures. Only one creature which kind of accustomed to live, these are dogs. But they are living with people. We as people are taking them and helping them. Without us, they would die. So this makes us really unique, you know, kind of creatures on Earth. And why this magic happened 10 to 12,000 years ago? What's the reason for that? And scientists think that what helped to this miracle to happen, that we developed our civilization. How old is our civilization, by the way? What are the first kind of, I don't know, constructions that were discovered? When are first artifacts that we have from people from economic activities?
5,000-6,000 years.
Before our BC, before
Yeah.
BC.
Yeah.
And 2000 here. So approximately, again, the same 10, 12,000 years. First Shumers appeared, then, you know, Assyrians, Babylonians, then, you know, Greek Empire, Roman Empire, then, you know, other empires, and up to modern time. So civilization is exactly 10, 12,000 years ago, which coincides with temperature. And it's accepted by science that something contributed to development of civilization. This is exactly what causes today's problem. That's the main issue. This is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide plays the role of greenhouse. Why it's called greenhouse? Because in the greenhouse plants are planted, and to protect them from cold, they usually cover, you know, with plastic. And then this plastic keeps temperature, and tomatoes, cucumbers, you know, greens, whatever, can you grow in greenhouses. This is exactly what's happening. It's adopted that mainly volcanic activities contributed to creation of this greenhouse gas coverage of Earth. And you may see this on the following picture. This picture. So this is the Earth, and around Earth there is a layer of greenhouse, CO2. CO2 helped to Earth that sun was sending rays, and they were coming to Earth. They were warming Earth, but then they also were going into the universe, back into the universe. They were not, heat was not accumulated around Earth. But when, at what period CO2 started accumulation, and through which activity? What's happened approximately 200 years ago? 200 years ago. I told before that about electricity and whatever. How this period is called? Industrial Revolution, exactly. So 200 years ago, Industrial Revolution started. Before Industrial Revolution, during previous 10 to 12,000 years, life was developing relatively slowly, much faster than during previous 1 million years, much faster, but slower than during last 200 years. And look, human beings lived for 1 million years. We said that Neanderthals lived approximately from 100,000 years to 40,000. There is in Azerbaijan Azık cave, you know Azık cave. Yeah. Can you guess how long people lived in Azık cave? How long?
1 million?
No, not 1 million. It's humanity. Less. Approximately 100,000 years. 100,000 years. 100,000. Can you imagine? The same life for 100,000 years. They were living in a cave, hunting, taking something, roots of, fruits from trees, eating, and it continued for 100,000 years without any significant changes. And during the last just 10 to 12,000 years, we created computer. We flown into universe. We discovered, what's happening on the, bottom of oceans. We discovered, nuclear, everything, Science developed very quickly, just within 10, 12,000 years, and everything due to CO2, carbon dioxide. But when Industrial Revolution started, science started developing, then, industry started developing, and agriculture as well. And need for humanity for energy increased dramatically. Before that, people were wearing the same dresses for almost their entire life. Fathers leaving their dresses for their kids, children. Women were giving their, these wedding dresses to their daughters. Shoes, for example, people didn't have as many shoes or as many dresses as today. Each person has a couple. Maybe very rich people, noble families had some, but average people, majority of people had very simple life. And need of electricity for need for energy was satisfied by coal, by wood, by wind station, water winds and windmills. And that's it. Very basic. But then electricity, and people started, this is very good creature of characteristic of people. We are very eager. We want to get more. This is when it's, kind of directed into right direction. In this case, this is very strong power. As I've said in the beginning, we are only one creature on Earth which tries to understand something and develop it to industrial, level. And since the beginning of Industrial Revolution, need for energy emerged dramatically, and CO2 started going into big masses into the atmosphere. And CO2, by the way, is not only greenhouse gas. Methane, CH4, this is also very strong greenhouse gas, CH4. This is methane. And this is carbon. When carbon is burned, two gases are emerging, CO and CO2. This is carbon dioxide, this is carbon monoxide. Both gases don't have any taste, don't smell. That's why this carbon monoxide, which is poison, and almost every day on TV you hear some news that somewhere people, because of negligence, they died either in the bathroom or during sleeping. It happens. Why? Because if carbon is not burned completely, in this case Azerbaycan'da dam gazı derlerdi. This is exactly carbon monoxide, and people are dying. So carbon monoxide is dangerous for small number of people, for one family. Usually it happens within family, not big number of people. But later you will see that if CO, carbon monoxide, is dangerous for certain individuals, carbon dioxide became problem for the entire humanity. How it happens? Very simple. This layer of CO2 becomes thick. and rays from sun coming to Earth, and they are going, certain part going to universe, certain part remaining around Earth. But when this layer of CO2 becomes thick, rays that are coming to Earth, they are not able to leave Earth space. Especially because there are different type of rays. Ultraviolet is the shortest waves, and red waves are the longest wave. So ultraviolet rays, they are coming to Earth, and when they are hitting the ground, it doesn't matter, Earth, oceans, mountains, they turn into longer waves. So ultraviolet waves are turned into red waves, heat waves. And heat waves are weaker, and that's why they cannot live around the Earth. And by the way, very often, greenhouse gas effect is mixed with ozone layer effect. These are two different things, don't mix. Ozone layer is exactly protecting us as human beings from ultraviolet waves because they are dangerous. So mostly ozone layer protects, but certain part goes through this CO2 layer. And then they start to warm the Earth. Earth is warmed and danger starts because temperature on Earth starts heating. And especially this measurement started in 20th century, and especially under Second World War. Scientists discovered that Earth is getting warmer and warmer. And they calculated that if increase in temperature exceeds 1.5 degrees of Celsius, 1.5, in this case, process becomes irreversible. So Earth will continue warming. It will not be able to cool itself. That's the reason why COP29 is gathered in Baku this time. First time, now I'm going to numbers. Numbers are helpful to us. Okay, I think I've covered this. So Earth's temperature is, as I've said, 15 degrees per Celsius, and we are human beings living under temperature minus 60 plus 50. So this is so-called information about United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So as I mentioned, after Second World War, scientists calculated and saw that temperature increase should be kept within the limits 1.5 degrees of Celsius. And in 1992, in Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil, there was a meeting called Earth Summit. It was called Earth Summit because it was very important. And in this Earth Summit, several important UN conventions were adopted, including this considered as major environmental conventions. There are about 30 environmental conventions, but this convention is major environmental convention on climate change. And each time that you adopt convention, it enters the force only after certain number of countries sign this. So it was adopted in 1992, but entered into force in 1994 after certain number of countries signed it and ratified this. And for example, right now there are 198 members of this convention. Among major countries which produce carbon dioxide, only Iran is not member to this convention. Iran is responsible for about 1-2% of carbon dioxide, approximately. United States under Trump administration left convention in 2020, but then under Biden administration in 2021, United States joined the convention again. Azerbaijan joined the convention in 1996, and another important event was Paris meeting in 2015, and on that meeting there was Paris Agreement adopted, which entered the force in 2016. So these are major kind of some data that for you to remember. And this COP is 29 COPs. Previous COPs were held in approximately, I don't remember, 17 or 18 countries, because some countries held COPs several times. For example, 4 times it was held in Germany, 4 times. This is the first time in Azerbaijan. And this diagram shows why these COP meetings continue for 2 weeks. On the left side, you see how much CO2 emissions each country is producing. These are 10 biggest emitters in the world. China is responsible for about 28-30% of all carbon dioxide emissions. China. United States approximately 15, maybe 17, somewhere between. Sometimes numbers differ. You may in different sources see small differences, one maximum 2%. But usually, you know, it shows precisely. Russia is responsible for 5%, India for 6-7%, and then you know, you may see which countries are less. On the right side, you see gross domestic product figures. The biggest economy in the world still is the United States of America. The second biggest economy in the world is China. In which relations United States and China are currently? Are their relations very cordial, very friendly?
Yeah.
No, they are competing for what? For hegemony in the world.
Oh, yeah.
They are competing for hegemony in the world. United States was hegemon for the last at least 80 years, since Second World War. Then Soviet Union competed with United States, but after 1991, when Soviet Union disappeared, for almost 30 years, United States was just one hegemon in the world, and now China started kind of competing with US for the hegemony. Now, dynamic of the economic relative development. About 50 years ago, United States economy was responsible for more than 40% of the world economy. 50 years ago, United States, 40%, more than 40% of world economy was with the United States. China economy, any number, how big? 50 years ago. Just 4%. 4%. More than 40 United States and 4% the China. 50 years has passed. If current tendencies continue, in 2030, China economy will equal to the United States economy. Just within 6-7 years. And also very importantly, one indicator of countries, how to say, drive for hegemony is how many patents are registered, you know, scientific patent are registered. Already for the last 4 or 5 years, China registers more patents than the United States. 1.5 times higher. So China is currently technological development, currently scientific development is driven already more by China than by the United States. China companies are paying to leading scientists, intellectuals, more than European or American scientists. So if you are a smart guy, you may choose go to the United States or to China. United States offers you, let's say, 50,000 per month. China says, okay, I'm offering 100,000, and you go to China, and you contribute to China's technological and scientific development. But this is economic comparison. So in 6-7 years, if current tendencies continue, China will, total of China economy will equal to total of US economy. But there is also another indicator, military might. If you compare military might of the United States to military might of China, United States still approximately 3-4 times stronger than China. 3-4 times, not percentage. Of course, these are kind of not approximate numbers, not clear, because maybe number of tanks bigger in one, maybe, you know, number of submarines, maybe, you know, other military equipment. But approximately, it's military specialists account that US military might is 3-4 times stronger than China. And China needs another 40 years approximately, maybe even more, to reach level of the United States. And they are competing. For example, one area of competition is Taiwan. Taiwan, on paper, it's part of China. And United States in the 70s said that they accept one China policy. Because at that time there was Hong Kong, Taiwan, and they were separate. So Hong Kong has been united with China, but Taiwan still remains a separate country. And this is very important country for the United States. Most of chips that we use in our phones, you know, in machines, in all techniques, most of them are produced in Taiwan. Taiwan is technological island, very important. It's a pearl, real pearl, you know, with very high development of science. Plus, it's located in such part of China Sea where, you know, water is deep. China shore is not as deep as water around Taiwan. So it's very good for military bases, for military submarines, for other, you know, military vessels. That's why United States and China compete. As I've said, this carbon dioxide accumulated during industrial revolution. Which countries have driven industrial revolution during the last 200 years? Which countries, which part of the world?
Azerbaijan.
Western countries. Western countries, Western Europe, and then United States, Canada. Australia also is located in the south, but it's also considered part of the global West. So, Western countries are responsible for most of carbon dioxide accumulated. And countries and all COPs are divided into two parts: developed countries and developing countries. Developed countries are led by the United States as the biggest and strongest country, and developing countries are led by China, because China says, yes, I am reaching you by overall level of economic development, but if you divide by population of China, which is 5 times almost bigger than the United States, 4-5 times, number becomes small. China says, I am developing country. Let me reach your level, and then I will be responsible as much as you are responsible. Developing countries are telling to developed countries that you are responsible for spoiling atmosphere around the world. So you have to bear the bigger responsibility for creating the Earth's atmosphere better. And that's why COP meetings takes 2 weeks, because there are very harsh arguments between countries, who is responsible, who will contribute more, who will contribute less. But before I move to the next, let me not forget. You see, China is emitting more than the United States. You see? But whose economy is still stronger? US. In this case, which economy is more efficient in terms of greenhouse gases? Emitting less and producing more? US, right? Because it's emitting less but producing more. Now Russia. Russia is occupying 4th place for greenhouse gas emissions. But Russia's economy, where? Only on 10th place, together with Canada. So Russian economy is not efficient in terms of greenhouse gases. United States, during last approximately 25-30 years, reduced its emissions by 2%. You may say a small number, 2%, what is it? But 2% is half of Russian total emission, Russian Federation, and equal almost Iran's emissions. So this is not small reduction. United States reduced it, and now countries during COP meetings discuss who is responsible and who should contribute more. By the way, in 2009, first time scientists made calculations how much help should be provided by developed countries to developing countries to help them to reduce their emissions, but not only to reduce emissions. There is also a process called nationally determined contribution, which means that how much emission you will reduce from your emission. Azerbaijan, for example, I will move to that. Azerbaijan has taken obligation to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 35% in comparison with 1990 by 2030. So in period from 1990 to 2030, Azerbaijan will reduce its emission by 35%. This is Azerbaijan's nationally determined contribution. And each country takes obligation. And will this country fulfill its obligation or not? This is another issue. But countries are taking obligation. And during COP meetings, they are discussing very harshly who is responsible, who should reduce. In 2009, scientists calculated that developed countries should provide help in the amount of 100,000 billions to developing countries. And since that time, this number never was achieved. Only in 2022, this number was achieved, but mainly not as a grants, but credits. So developed countries have given credits to developing countries, and credit is something that you have to return. This is debt. This is not grant. And even more, in 2023, scientists again calculated that even this amount is not necessary, enough. You need 10 times more. You need $1 trillion help. 1 trillion. Some calculations show that even 1 trillion is not enough. Maybe you need 1.5 trillion, maybe 2 trillion, because developing countries are using mainly sources of energy which produce more carbon dioxide. For example, China, the biggest user of coal. Coal, if you go to Peking, I've been to Beijing, in Beijing you never see the sky, never. Because people in their households, they use coal to warm and for cooking, and Beijing is surrounded by thermal electric stations which use coal. Coal is the cheapest way to produce electric energy, the cheapest. For example, Poland is member of European Union, you know. European Union for the last 20-25 years pressures Poland give up using coal, don't use coal. Poland resists. Poland up to date produces significant amount of its energy from coal. And coal is the biggest in the amount. In comparison with coal, oil is less dangerous, natural gas is less dangerous, and that's why, for example, thermal stations in Azerbaijan during the last 20 years, they were previously using mazout, and all of them moved to natural gas. Natural gas is less dangerous. But I mentioned in the beginning, carbon dioxide is not only one greenhouse gas. There are other greenhouse gases. Methane is also a very important greenhouse gas. Methane is 20 times stronger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. 20 times. Simply, amount of methane is less than CO2 because when you produce energy by burning hydrocarbons, you produce CO2. But methane, when it's burned, it turns into, let's say, safely burned into CO2 and water. H2O. By the way, vapor is also greenhouse gas. But vapor goes up and then by rain it goes again to earth. So there is circulation. It's not accumulated around the earth. Because it's by rain, it's coming again to earth. But CO2 accumulated, you see? And when you approach Baku, you may see in many places that, flaring. When there is oil extraction, when you extract oil, there is all this accompanying gas. All this. If you extract oil, there is always methane. Its amount may be different. And that's why, mainly, there are two terms, venting and flaring. Venting, venting, and flaring, burning, flaring. So, if you vent methane, it goes into atmosphere. It remains, and it's, as I've said, it's very dangerous greenhouse gas. That's why, in most cases, they burn. They burn simply, and that's why you see, flares around Baku when approaching. Because when you flare, it's less dangerous than simply vent methane into the atmosphere. And then CO2 is accumulated, but it's less dangerous, 20 times less dangerous than methane. And water is evaporation, then goes by rain to earth. So during these COP meetings, severe discussions go. Developing countries, led by China, they say that developed countries should give more money to developing countries because alternative energy is still more expensive than burn coal or oil or gas. That's the reality. Alternative energy, solar, wind, they are very expensive, relatively expensive. But cost goes down from year to year. During last 20 years, cost of solar energy went down 2 times every 5-6 years. So for the last 20 years, approximately 3 cycles, and each cycle by 2 times, it makes 6, maybe 8 times. So cost of solar batteries went down during last 20 years by almost 7 times. They are much cheaper than 20 years ago, but they are still more expensive than produce energy from coal. And in general, technology specialists, they say that in any country, share of alternative energy should be no more than 30%. Because they are not fully reliable. There might be sun, another day there might be no sun. Today there could be good wind, tomorrow no wind. And that's why share of alternative energy in the total energy balance of the country should be no more than 30%. And the country should use combination. So, for example, electric grid which uses thermal electric station should be connected to solar batteries or windmills. In this case, if there is no wind, you use more from thermal stations, and vice versa. And during COPs, they are sitting around the table, taking obligations, and each time during previous 3 COPs, approximately 1-2 days before ending the COP, there was announcement made that countries still didn't reach agreement and COP will continue for 2 more days. So one issue is to reach agreement, but another issue is to keep this promise. Very often countries take promise but don't keep them. They say, okay, this year my economy was not good, I was not generating enough profit, and that's why, even so I promised to give, let's say, $10 million, I am able to give only $5 million, for example. So these are very contentious issues. They are discussed during COP meetings, and that's why Azerbaijan this time made an initiative that discussions, negotiations between the United States and China will start actually maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after tomorrow. They will start even before COP will start, even before. During 11, 12, and 13 November, country leaders will be in Baku because they have to make big promises. Presidents, prime ministers, in some cases ministers of economy, of ecology, they will be making pledges, promises, and then technical specialists during the remaining 10 days, they will sit over the table and calculate how much help United States is providing, how much other countries, and now developed countries, they say that not only they should be responsible, but oil producing countries should contribute more, like Gulf states, Arab states, Venezuela or Azerbaijan, Iran, they should contribute also because you burn energy, even so you are developing country, but you contribute more than other developing countries which don't have as much, hydrocarbon fuel to burn. That's why you have to contribute. So these are very severe discussions. And China, because China competes with the United States for Taiwan, for the world hegemony, and China really is very strong competitor, and that's why United States says to China, okay, let's share this responsibility, contribute as much as I do. China says, no, if you divide by population, I am poor country. By per capita income, China is very poor country. By overall size, it's big country. So these are all political games. And here I am showing you that ecology is a sphere where economy, politics, and military are coming together. And that's why all discussions about ecology are very, very difficult. I want also to mention one issue, important issue. You may have heard, or you may know already, that there are also COPs under other conventions. As I said, there are many conventions, environmental conventions, about 30, but 3 major conventions are on climate change, on biodiversity, and on land degradation and protection from desertification. Among these 3, the most important, of course, is climate change, because climate change impacts the biodiversity and it impacts land degradation. So about 5 days ago, decision was made that COP17 on biodiversity will be held in Armenia in 2026. And I want to show it also here how politics impacts, ecology. When decision to conduct COP29 in Baku was made, Azerbaijan had only 10-11 months to prepare COP29. All other countries previous COPs, they had 2 years. Why? For example, in Dubai, 2 decisions were made that COP29 will be conducted in Baku, COP30 will be conducted in Brasilia. But this time, why it took longer to make decision? Because conventions always stipulate how meetings, COP meetings are organized. And they go by continents. Dubai in which continent is located? Asia. Egypt, which continent? Africa. Before that it was in Scotland. Where is Scotland? Europe, Western Europe. So Europe is divided into 2 parts. There are unwritten rules in international relations. For example, President of the World Bank, all this is American, all this. It's not written, but head of International Monetary Fund, IMF, is all this Western European, all this. So this is kind of unwritten. The same about convention meetings, COPs. So this time, when Azerbaijan was selected, it was turn of Eastern Europe. And in Eastern Europe, several countries wanted to conduct it. One of them was Russia. But when Russia entered Ukraine, war started. Western European countries said, we will veto. We will not vote for having this in Russia. Then Bulgaria said that, okay, I want to conduct it. But Russia said, I will veto Bulgaria because Bulgaria joined sanctions against Russia. In this situation, Azerbaijan offered its candidacy. And immediately after Azerbaijan offered its candidacy, Armenia offered its own candidacy. Just with one goal, to prevent Azerbaijan from having this. And these, UN leaders said to Azerbaijan, okay, negotiate with Armenia because decision made by consensus is the best decision. Because in this case, enthusiasm is higher, motivation is higher. They said to us, okay, negotiate with Armenia, and we negotiated with Armenia, we released certain their prisoners. Then we agreed that Armenian representative will be presented in the board of the Convention on Climate Change. This is very important position because members of the board decide to which countries how much help goes. When people are taken hired for certain positions. So this is important position. Azerbaijan gave its approval for Armenian representative to be presented in board. Azerbaijan made certain concessions. When this time decision on COP17 to be conducted in Armenia was made, Azerbaijan was against. But instead, as in case with Azerbaijan, saying to Armenia, go to Azerbaijan and negotiate with them, they simply voted and made this decision. This is about double standards in international relations. Because, for example, there is another important convention on transboundary rivers and waters, transboundary. Azerbaijan and Russia joined this convention. If Armenia had joined this convention, we can go to Armenia and conduct monitoring of their rivers. For example, rivers Araz, Okchuchay, which flow through Armenia to Azerbaijan. Armenia didn't join. But this time, UN, without, they pressured us to make compromise with Armenia. But they didn't pressure Armenia to make compromise with us. And so this is about double standard, how international relations work. But if I can step aside just for a minute, international relations are such sphere where not only written rules like UN rules, but also military might plays a role. For example, there is decision of court in Gaad fining China for certain activities in South China Sea. For 20 years, China is not paying. And nobody can pressure China to pay this amount. So UN rules very often are written only for small, weak countries. Strong, big countries, simply disregard this. So how is this international relations work? So this is for you to understand. That's why Azerbaijan should be strong. Let me see what comes next. This is, as I've said, the different methods to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. One method is to burn less fuel. One method. Second method, through energy efficiency. Previously in our houses, these windows with one glasses. Now they are with two glasses. By simply locating house towards sun, you may use more sun time and you will use less electricity. Cooling, heating. Azerbaijan, unfortunately, is using per square meter more energy than Scandinavian countries, even so they are in much colder area. Why? Because in Azerbaijan, not much attention is paid to energy efficiency. In developed countries, in their construction codes, in their rules, in their laws, there are usually three big requirements for construction. First is about architecture, because architecture should be checked by certain authority. Second is for safety. In Azerbaijan, safety is checked, for example, Ministry for Emergency Situations. But in most countries, developed countries, there is third indicator, how much energy you will spend for 1 square meter within the building. And it differs from area to area. For example, in mountain area, one number, in lowland area, another number, in cold season, another number. So it's very complicated area, but this is in which direction Azerbaijan should move. For example, Turkey was similar to Azerbaijan about 15, 20 years ago, but during last 10 years, because they wanted to kind of accept all European rules, in last 10 years, they created excellent so-called MRV system. MRV, it stands for, M stands for measurement, R stands reporting, and V stands for verification. How it works? And you may have heard about so-called carbon credits. Have you heard definition carbon credits? How these carbon credits are developed? For example, I am construction company. I am going to build this year, let's say, 100 very big apartment buildings, very big buildings. And I say that I will produce this much carbon dioxide. Or I am, for example, very big food producer company. I am saying that this year I will produce 100,000 ton food, and I will emit this amount of carbon dioxide. Then your business goes very well, and you are able to produce not 100,000 food, but let's say 150,000 food. But you are not allowed. You have to buy somewhere carbons. So you go to the market, and there are firms which plan to produce certain amount of food, but they were not able, and they have surplus of their credits. So they sell this credit, and there is market within the countries and between the countries. For example, Azerbaijan has taken obligation to reduce its emissions by 35%, but Azerbaijan sees that was able to reduce by 40%. So we have surplus, and we can sell this surplus to another country which needs them. And there is carbon credit, and it's an international market. It's like like valuta, like reserves. No, I don't want to go into different direction, but MRV system is very important. In Azerbaijan, we still have paper-based MRV system. What does it mean? Every factory reports that they produced this amount of emissions this year, and then certain ministries, for example, Ministry of Ecology calculates, and we have these numbers, how much Azerbaijan produced. But it's not considered as reliable, because the reliable system is when there are real measurement, and it goes to two ways. First, government measures, and then company proves. That's why it says verification. I have to verify that numbers that I have reported, it's true number. Azerbaycan'da doğrulama değiller. Ölçme, hesabat, doğrulama. Measurement, reporting, and verification. And in Turkey, for example, people, my colleagues worked for the ministries, but then when this energy audit market has emerged, they moved to energy audit companies, because first government comes to them and says, okay, calculate how much, and then verification follows. They provide consultancy services both to the government and to the enterprises, and they gain more money than working for the ministry. So this is about how this carbon market works. Yeah. Sure. Another ways to reduce resource reliance is to use less water. For example, calculations show that if you turn the tap off when you use spoon or soap, or when you clean your teeth, in this case, if you close the tap, approximately per person, 2-3 liters of water less is used. 3 liters approximately per person. And we are 10 million in Azerbaijan. In this case, we are using approximately 3 million liters of water less. And Azerbaijan, in comparison with our neighbors, we are in disadvantageous position. About 60 to 65% of fresh water of the South Caucasus are in Georgia. 60 to 65. About 20% are in Armenia. Azerbaijan has only 10-15% of fresh water, drinking water, in the South Caucasus. 10 to 15%. Fertile lands, vice versa. Fertile lands are mostly in Azerbaijan. We liberated, always we say that we liberated 20% of our territory, but in reality, occupied territory was about 15%. Simply there was security belt around it, and that's why we were saying 20%. We returned 15%, liberated 15% of our territory, but we liberated 30% of our water. 30%, because this area, Karabakh area, is very rich with water, and water coming from Karabakh area reaches as far as Saatlı, Salyan, through Kura, through Araz rivers. So we liberated 30% of our water. Major rivers in Azerbaijan are Araz, Kura, Samur on the north between Russia and Azerbaijan. During Soviet time, for example, Samur river water was divided 70% by Azerbaijan, taken by Azerbaijan, 30% by Russia. In each country, in each river, there is certain amount which is considered not taken no, because otherwise the river will die and all biolife will die. That's why after this safe amount, 70% was taken by Azerbaijan, 30% by Russia. When Azerbaijan became independent, Russia said, okay, let's now 50-50, because now you are independent country, we are not together. And Azerbaijan had very difficult negotiations with Russia. We convinced that it's very necessary because Azerbaijan lacks fresh water. And finally, through certain compromises, Azerbaijan is again taking 70% of Samur river. At the same time, look, how difficult and what disadvantage it. In Azerbaijan, losses of water reach approximately 40 to 50%. 40 to 50%, almost half of water that we, fresh water, drinking water, is lost. Mainly by agriculture, because we still use earth channels, not concrete channels. Torpak kanalları, beton kanalları. So we use earth channels, and when water goes through earth channel, it seeps into the ground, then it results in salinization. Previously, for example, to the time of my youth, when I was your age, between Hacı Gabul and Baku mainly were salinized lands. You were just going by train and you see that, when you go, you see white, right, on the earth. This is salt. And after salt appears, it kills everything. Nothing can go on that. It's dead land, simply. Now, when you travel, look, there are salinized areas already between Kürdemir and Ganja. Previously, there were no such places. In Azerbaijan, significant amount of lands is already salinized, and it's very bad for agriculture, for the country. So that's why we need to use resources. All our channels, and the government started already. The government started create concrete channels. We started finally reuse water. Baku Bus company, they have already reuse water. Approximately 60 to 70% of water that they use, they clean and use again to clean the buses. In Nizami metro station, they started to collect metro underground water. And this is also a very rich source of water. In many countries, in metro, water is and water is everywhere. Or for example, when oil is extracted from oil, comes always with water. So you have to separate them and then use this water. Migechevir, for example, one city which now wanted to clean these sewage waters. Sewage waters is also, if you clean it, in many countries, sewage waters are treated and then they are used not for drinking, but for planting and for greening. And very important source. Azerbaijan should move in that direction. And Azerbaijan is country with the highest density of population in all our region. Population density in Azerbaijan is higher than in Iran, in Turkey, in Georgia, in Armenia, in Russia. Azerbaijan is the most densely populated country. That's why we have to take better care of our environment. Plus, as I've said, we don't have enough water, we have higher population, density of population, and simply we have to take care of nation. That's why each time when you see that, some garbage on the street or food remnant, food, by the way, when food is spoiled, what is produced? You smell it, right? When you smell food, methane. And that's methane is one of gases that is produced from agricultural remnants. For example, after you harvest wheat, there are certain remnants. If you don't collect, don't process, in this case it will spoil and it will produce big amount. By the way, animals, cows and sheep, they are producing enormous amount of methane, very big. And that's why this is also bioenergy source. If we process bioenergy, which still also is more expensive, in United Nations Development Program, we investigated this case and we looked how in Azerbaijan bioenergy could be used. And in most cases, still Azerbaijan is social state and energy in Azerbaijan, believe me, is very cheap still. electric energy and natural gas sold to population of water. Prices. Water is approximately 50 to 70 kopek, depending on area. Gas, again, how much you use, is approximately somewhere between 10, 12 or 25, depending on amount, if you surplus past the limit, so in this case. And electricity also starts from 10 and goes up. It's much cheaper than in many European countries, much cheaper. It's still social state because we have still, population, vulnerable population, and that's why the government covers this expense. But we have to take better care because, as I've said, Azerbaijan is very sensitive country. There are two directions in climate change: climate change mitigation and climate change adaptation. From the point of climate change mitigation, Azerbaijan is very small emitter. You know how much Azerbaijan emits? What's
1.7.
share of Azerbaijan?
1.7.
No. As I've said, Russia is 4-5, India 6-7, United States 15-17, and China 28-30. Azerbaijan is responsible for 0-1, 0-1-2. So, just let me write it here for you. 0. This is share of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is very small emitter. Very small emitter. But despite that, Azerbaijan has taken obligation to conduct COP29. As I've said, Azerbaijan had only 10-11 months, and Azerbaijan was able to prepare COP meeting in less than 2 years, in less than 1 year. Brazil has 2 years. That's why when some countries say that, Azerbaijan for some reasons don't want kind of, let's say, we will boycott, blah, blah, blah. They will not boycott. This is important event, and this is not Azerbaijan event. This is United Nations. This is global humanity event. For example, Prime Minister of Norway says, I will not come to Baku. Okay, if you are not coming, then boycott. Don't come at all. But they are sending delegation, but Prime Minister is not coming. So they want to use Baku for negotiations. But they don't show respect to the country which during 10-11 months was able to prepare COP29. Another very important question that very often discussed in Azerbaijan among society, because conducting such a big event is not easy, difficult. And we also, to a certain extent, we are suffering. We are staying, in car jams. We are spending more time to go to university, to come to work. So this causes certain difficulties for us. What are advantages for Azerbaijan? Because very often people say, what? First of all, of course, this is image for the country. An image of the country is very important. This is very important. If, for example, there are double, triple standards in international relations, and if you don't have enough friends, it will be very difficult, especially for a country of Azerbaijan size, it will be very difficult to protect itself among these, giants. So this is first, image of the country is very important. Secondly, if not COP29 conducted in Baku, I am sure we didn't have this meeting. But we collected, we discussed Azerbaijani problem, and environment became priority in Azerbaijan. When I started to work for United Nations Development Program 15, 16 years ago, environment was not a priority in Azerbaijan, not at all. Nowadays, everyone speaks about, clean environment, about, collecting garbage, processing garbage, using water efficiently, using energy efficiently. This very big contribution to country development. And this is also source of mobilization. Where as a whole country, 10 million we are now mobilizing. For a country to be mobilized for certain actions, this is very important. Very important. Because how we won, actually, this 44 days, because we got mobilized. Mobilization is very important. I encourage you to mobilize your friends, your relatives, and family. When you throw the garbage, there are only two types of cans, garbage cans. Yellow, or orange, and green. So into yellow you have to throw paper, glass, and not food. Food should go only in green, because then it goes to Tamiz Shahar and then they separate. So these are very important for Azerbaijan. Plus, finally, in many countries, this bus lanes. But of course, this is difficult process. This is painful process. It takes time because I cannot immediately move to alternative ways. But today I came here by walk. Not these measures. I would come with car, use, burn energy, but I walked here. It took me 30 minutes. I am fine. I feel better, I'm energized. So little by little, it's a difficult process, but we have to start, getting used to this. These are, I already covered this. So this is about exactly developing countries, versus developing countries. And these are Azerbaijan obligations, as I've said. So by 2030, reduce emissions by 35% in comparison with 1990. By 2030, achieve 30% energy balance in total energy production. By the way, currently Azerbaijan mainly produces alternative energy from hydropower stations. This is Mingashevir hydropower station plus many about 25-30 smaller hydropower stations. There are two indicators for hydropower energy: installed capacity and produced energy. Installed capacity is approximately 16 to 70%, but produced energy is less. It's about 7, 8, maybe 9. It depends from period to period percent. Installed capacity is much bigger, but we produce less. Another obligation, we took obligation by 2050 to reduce amount of our greenhouse gases in comparison with 1990 by 40%, and turn Karabakh zone into zero emission zone. So as much of emissions we will produce by 2040 in Karabakh, the same amount we will catch mainly by trees, because trees, this process of photosynthesis, they take carbon dioxide from atmosphere and turn it into the leaves, into the trees. And these are numbers for Azerbaijan's potential for alternative energy: water, wind, solar, and by the way, lately hydrogen energy, because previously hydrogen is produced from water, but it was very expensive process. Now scientists are developing methods to produce hydrogen. This is methane, hydrogen is H2, right? So when you burn H2, what is coming? Just evaporation, and it goes by rain to earth. So now scientists are working on this. As I've said, China is now the main leader. China is main leader now in many areas. In construction, in alternative energy, electric cars. In Baku, you see, most of these cars in Baku are Chinese cars, because they are leading this energy revolution. I think I covered this theory part. And this is about, as I mentioned, I am advising two, these are methods, but let me move to pictures. So this is Balakhani oil and Surakhani oil. They pilot several measures how to reduce reliance on electricity and carbon fuel. You see to the left, this is oil rig, and to the right are solar batteries. And solar batteries calculations will be required, how much energy is produced, how much. Currently, for example, I wanted to install in my summer house solar batteries, and I asked, what's return period, how fast I will return my money. And the return period was approximately 20 years. So they're still expensive. If the price goes down, in this case, I will be. But if, for example, I would have built my summer house today, I would put simple tank on the roof or somewhere on the height, and it's enough. So if you are going to build summer house, put this tank. In Turkey, if you go to Turkey, you will see almost every house has tank on the roof, because sun, especially in our zone, geographic zone, sun is very strong, and sun is able to warm this tank approximate to the temperature 40-45 degrees, especially in summer months. So it's enough, for washing, for cleaning, for using. So this is another good method. What else? This to the left you may see contaminated land, and to the right already trees. These two companies this year in Balakhani oil about 2,000 people are working, in Surakhani oil 1,500. And these two companies with number of employees 3.5 thousand planted more than 11,000 trees. 11. So approximately 3-4 trees per person. In Baku now there are more than 3 million people. If every person plants 3 trees, in this case we will plant 10 million approximately trees. That's why, you know, planting trees is very important. It's good for health, it's good for environment. Simply, you know, you see much better picture. This is to the left, contaminated land. In Absheron, huge amount of lands are contaminated. I worked for United Nations Development Program. Before that, I worked for the World Bank. So I was familiar that in Absheron, situation is not good, but I couldn't imagine that it's so big and it's so bad. During first Russian Empire period and then during Soviet period, almost 200 years oil is extracted, and first years of independence was also not easy for Azerbaijan because we have to take care of refugees, take care of vulnerable people, also, you know, increase military might of the country. Less attention was paid to the environment, and maybe amount of money required to clean Absheron Peninsula is comparable with the amount of money necessary for Karabakh reconstruction. Huge amount of money, billions and billions of dollars are required. That's why it's not easy task, but you know, SOCAR conducts certain cleaning operations, and each oil company also understanding their social responsibility to do that. And this is to the left, you may see beach cleanup. I am frankly speaking not very big enthusiast of beach cleanup because some people go and throw garbage and some others come and clean up. It's not good. We simply should teach people not to throw garbage. And very often we see these scenes, but how to approach this? I believe in strength, in force of soft words. Soft words are very influential. If, for example, you see someone throwing garbage, if you say with smile, you know, brother, sister, why you do that? You know, it's Baku. Why not spoil our country? And we smile, you know. In the worst case, this person will say, you are crazy, you know. Look, what's the usual answer? Everyone does this. If I don't do you mean it will be cleaner? Yes, if each of us will do that, it will be much cleaner. Yeah. So with soft, you know, and smile, if you say, I think it will have impact. And these are children playground created also. This is opening, by the way, to the right of this playground, and this you may see playground for children, park. Here you see in kindergarten. We also conducted sessions in kindergarten because children, when they start from, when I went to the United States for studying in my master's program, I am average Azerbaijani. I also in our new apartment in the United States, we also were throwing garbage together. My children were taught at the school that you have to separate, and they were fighting with us parents. Children are very strong force. Youth in general are very strong force. Because my children were insisting, no, you have to separate. Food should be here, paper here, plastic there. Plus, country should also pay attention to this. If you've been to Germany, in Germany, every supermarket, there are machines, and you come and throw, for example, glass bottles. And it calculates one bottle 25 cents, euro cents, 25. So if you throw 4 of them, it makes €1, and for €1 you can buy almost 2 beers. Beers are approximately, good beers are cheap, kind of slightly expensive, but I was buying in Germany beer for about 60 to 70 cents, very good beer, believe me. So 4 or 5 bottles and I have already 2 beers. So chocolate, if you prefer chocolate, go and buy chocolate. And that's why we're moving in that direction, but not fast enough. We have to move faster. And to the left, computer room also created by us. And we conducted excellent. Today we conducted 2 because schools, were squeezed, they will have vacation. Today we conducted 2 meetings. Today is only my 3rd speaking in school, and we're conducting through intellectual games, questions for children. Children, I'm not going to teach children. Simple questions, very simple questions. For example, let me jog my memory. How many people first time entered, Everest? Do you know how many people first time went to Everest? 1, 2, 3, 5, 10, how many? Very interesting story, because under each story there is very good human history. Look, 2 people, because it was a New Zealand person, he had also Britain citizenship, Hillary, and Sherp. Sherp are people living in close to Jamalongma in Nepal, they are called Sherps, Tenzing. So they went up, and before them, many people tried, but they either were not able or dying. But then they approached it, someone stepped it first, yes, first. And they agreed that they will not reveal who stepped it there first. Both of them have died, and they kept their promises. Now in the history, it says that, two people, Hillary and Tenzing, were first people to go. Or another question, for example, under which temperature water has the highest density? Water is very, very interesting substance, water. Each substance, for example, if you start cooling table will start squeezing. If you start squeezing whatever, I don't know, fabric or whatever. Water, first it goes down, 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 but at 4 degrees it has highest density. At 3 degrees, it starts again expanding. At 3 degrees, 2 degrees, 1 degree, density of water is less than at 4%. It's some magic of water, because something happens with atoms of water and it becomes most dense at 4 degrees. Or for example, another question, which animal in the history is the biggest animal in the history of humanity? I'm sorry, nature. The biggest animal is considered blue whales. Blue whales are considered bigger than dinosaurs. Can you imagine? They are the biggest, because we now have bones of dinosaurs, but we don't know how long was tail and how long was meat on the head. That's why it's considered that blue whales are bigger creatures in general, living creatures on the earth, blue whales. And they are approximately 35 meters. Can you imagine 35? This room, how long is 12 meters or something like that? Eh? So 3 times of this room, very big. So questions like that, or for example, which national park in Azerbaijan reintroduced jayrans to other national parks? Yeah. Yeah. Or very simple, these are children, for children. Which light from which source has the highest speed? From lamp, from sun, from moon, from neighbor, or from what? Speed has the same speed, light has the same speed, right? Independent from source. So these are kind of, playful questions which help children to get engaged into the environment and into environmental problems. So we conducted many meetings at school, but not only at schools. We conducted, this is by the way, again, head of Balakhani Oil, president of Balakhani Oil company, gives gifts to the winner of the intellectual game. So this is planting trees, and this is meetings that we conducted in Nakhchivan. Nakhchivan is part of Azerbaijan, which unfortunately is separated, and it's very costly. You have to pay 120 manats to fly to Nakhchivan, very expensive. That's why we decided to conduct meeting, and we went to Nakhchivan, and the minister, they are Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources. This is meeting at Nakhchivan Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources. This is meeting at the University of Architecture and Construction. And to the left, you may see Leyla Hasanova. This is youth champion under COP29. And these are also professors and teachers and students as well. Very good meeting we conducted there. This is meeting just yesterday. Can you imagine where? This is Karabakh University in Khankanli. Yesterday we conducted meeting there, and this together with students. Very good university, by the way. Very good university. I like students who are very active, with good intellectual ability, with good, ability to kind of think out of box. So, and I think this university has very big future, very big future. Yeah. I think that's it. Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention.